Some Kind of Happiness, Chapter 3. At home, dinner is typically a haphazard affair. Mom camps out at the kitchen table, scarfs down her food in 5 minutes, and spends the rest of the night poring over some client's renovation blueprints. Dad sits at his desk in the corner of the living room to work on lesson plans or write the novel he'll never finish because he gets distracted too easily. Every now and then he'll take a bite of food. Mom inhales, Dad pecks. I sit on the couch with my TV tray and my homework, usually with some kind of nature documentary on in the background. Dad says the narration soothes him and helps clear his mind. Some people think it's odd that we hardly ever eat dinner at the table. I like our way, though. It makes me feel grown up, like Mom and Dad don't have to pretend to care about typical dinner time rituals. We're all adults here. We eat how we want to eat. But dinner at the Hart House is like a dance. Not only do I not know the steps, but I seem to have forgotten how to move my legs entirely. All 12 of us sit around the polished dining room table. The room is full of glass. There's a sparkling chandelier. Old fashioned music plays from a long, skinny stereo on a side table. Even though the stereo looks new, the music crackles and pops. My aunts bring in dishes, serve drinks. I have a list of the hearts in my notebook. For a couple of days, I've studied their names and the photographs Dad gave me. Grandpa sent them in an email. Obviously, it's beyond strange to not have photographs of one's own family. When I asked Dad about this, he rubbed his head and said, "Finn, it's complicated." Whatever that means. My aunts whisper to one another as they set out silverware. "I can't believe they can't stay for dinner," says one of them. Her face is soft, and she keeps looking at me like she's terrified I might cry again. Aunt Deidre, D for short, Dad said. "I'm not surprised," hissed another one of the aunts, thin and sharp all over. Her shiny blonde hair is pulled back into a tight bun. "I'm surprised they actually showed up." Aunt Bridget. I must never call her anything but Aunt Bridget, certainly not Bridge. In real life, she looks even scarier than her photograph. Dad said Aunt Bridget kept her last name instead of taking Uncle Reed's, which I think is pretty wonderful. I wouldn't want to give up my last name, but I'm not going to tell Aunt Bridget that. I'm not sure I'd say anything at all to her. In fact, she reminds me of a beautiful bird you want to pet if you weren't afraid it might peck your eyes out. "Stop it," says my third aunt, Aunt Amelia. Long tan legs and arms, lots of teeth. She's a runner, always has been. Everyone calls her Stick. Not in front of Finley. I inspect my napkin like it's the most interesting thing in the world. "Girls," Grandpa says to my aunts, folding his napkin into his lap, "don't cause trouble. Bridget Lynn, this means you." Aunt Bridget frowns, sits, takes a gulp of her drink. The ice cubes clink against the glass. Grandpa's chair is at the head of the table. He has a lot of hair, combed into stiff silver waves. When he catches me staring at him, he winks. He is not very good at it. Everyone is looking at me now, which makes me want to slither under the table and eat on the floor, but I think that's probably not allowed here. Focus, Finley. I must think of my list. Aunt Bridget is married to Uncle Reed, who isn't here. He's hardly ever around, Dad said, because Uncle Reed took over Grandpa's business, which is basically about buying and selling companies and sounds to me like the most boring thing imaginable. One of Aunt Bridget's 8-year-old twins shrieks. Deeks, the boy. "Ruth!" Aunt Bridget snaps. "Stop shaking pepper on your brother." "But, Mom, he's been poisoned. This is the cure. He has to sneeze it out." Ruth's shouting makes me nervous. I wish my notebook weren't all the way up in my room. I wish I were home. I wish. Focus. Aunt Dee is married to Uncle Nelson, who drawls his words and looks like a cowboy without a horse. They have 2 kids, Kennedy, 12 years old, the girl who looks like she belongs on a beach somewhere, Avery, 17 years old, the girl I saw playing on her phone, the girl so pretty she doesn't look real. Then there's Aunt Amelia, Stick, and her daughter Gretchen. Stick is 90% smile, 10% human. Gretchen has frizzy brown hair. Mom told me Gretchen is the same age. She said it in this cheerful way, like the fact that there's another 11-year-old in the house is supposed to make me feel better about the situation. Doubtful, Mom. And then there's me. Grandma, Grandpa, Uncle, Aunt Bridget, Uncle Reed, away on business, Dex and Ruth, Aunt Dee, Uncle Nelson, Avery and Kennedy, Stick and Gretchen, and me, Finley. Aunt Dee sets a plate in front of me, and smooths back my hair in a way that reminds me of Mom. I decide it probably isn't a great idea to start crying again, so I grab a fork and dive in before anybody has a chance to betray me. Maybe if I stuff my mouth with enough food, it will prevent me from saying what I want to say. There has been an awful mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not one of you. Someone kicks me from under the table. When I look up, everyone is staring at me, except for Grandma, who stands at the head of the table with her hands clasped at her waist. My lips are smeared with salad dressing. What did I do wrong? Who kicked me? I glance across the table. Gretchen shakes her head with her eyes wide. Grandpa clears her throat. Finley, here at Hart House, nobody eats until Grandma sits down. She's the key, Dex explains cheerfully. You can't eat until she unlocks the meal. Ruth claps her hands over her mouth and giggles hysterically. Ruth, for God's sakes, calm yourself, says Aunt Bridget. Right this minute, stop laughing. Also, you're using the wrong fork. This is Avery, who looks like she's trying not to smile. You're supposed to use the salad fork, to eat your salad. I look down at the table setting and see 6 utensils, 3 forks of different sizes, 2 spoons, and a knife. Okay. Stick replaces my fork with a clean one and nudges my shoulder with her elbow. Not to worry. How could you possibly be expected to know that? She smiles, but I'm not sure I believe her. It's not like Lewis would teach her anything, says Aunt Bridget. He doesn't care about such things. He thinks everything we do is, what did he call us? Obsessed with the superficial. Aunt Dee touches Aunt Bridget's arm. Bridget, let's not do this right now. I'm just saying that's what everyone else is thinking, Aunt Bridget snaps. Besides her, Avery smirks and looks down at her lap. I see a soft glow on her shirt and realizes she's playing with her phone under the table. That's enough, Bridget, says Grandma, and then she sits down in the only empty chair. We do not talk about upsetting topics at the dinner table. Upsetting topics? Does she mean my dad? If he's an upsetting topic, what does that make me? Grandpa leads a prayer, another thing I'm not used to, another thing that makes me feel small and bulky at the same time. Everyone begins to eat, and I pretend to, but I have lost my appetite. People are talking to me. Gretchen and Stick, whose default setting seems to be talking. Kennedy, whose smile looks as if it was straight out of a teeth whitening commercial. But I'm too afraid to say anything much. I'm afraid if I open my mouth, the wrongness inside me will come gushing out. The wrongness of using the incorrect fork. The wrongness of not knowing that Grandma is the key. The wrongness of the tight jumbled knot that is my insides, and how heavy it feels, and how it is pulling and pushing and molding me like clay. I grab the crystal glass to the right of my plate and gulp down some water. When I set the glass back down, I see the prints my sweaty fingerprints have left behind. I feel a sense of deep, sudden friendship with that smudge. That is me. My aunts and uncles, my grandparents, my beautiful, beautiful cousins. I am a smudge on their glass. Chapter 4. I wake up sweating and pinned to my bed with terror. Once at home, I woke up like this and ran crying to my parents. I told them I felt like I was going to throw up, that I heard terrible thoughts screaming in my head and couldn't make them stop. They brought me a glass of water and sat with me until I fell asleep. Nothing was wrong with me, they said. I had had a nightmare. Sometimes bad dreams linger. I didn't believe them. I'd had nightmares before. This wasn't the same thing. I knew something must be wrong for me to feel like that, something deep down where no one could see. Since then, I've never told my parents when I wake up sweating, feeling hot and sick and small. Instead, I write about the Everwood until nothing else matters. I never want to scare my parents again. I don't want them to look at me like I'm broken in a way they don't know how to fix. We are already broken enough. It's the reason I'm here. Gray light seeps in through the long white curtains of my bedroom, and I finally remember I'm not at home. Everyone has spent the night at Hart House. The twins made a tent on the porch. My aunts and uncles and cousins all live nearby, but apparently they do this a lot. Sleep over like a bunch of kids at a party. Before I can talk myself out of it, I throw on some clothes and slip downstairs out through the glassed-in sunroom attached to the kitchen. At first, the backyard looks pretty typical. Thick green lawn, swing set with 2 swings, bushes overflowing with pink flowers, wind chimes tinkling on the patio. There is no fence around the yard. Hart House is virtually in the middle of nowhere. A path of pebbles leads to a slope in the ground. I creep closer and see stone steps set into the dirt, leading down into a pile of leaves and grass. It is almost as if someone carved a pond into the earth, sucked it dry with water, and filled it with more trees. There are so many of them, the air feels heavy and alive, like it's full of people. But I'm the only one here. Beyond the pit, there is a small river, and beyond the river, there are woods. There is no fence to block my view, nothing to separate my grandparents' property from the woods above. Wind blows past me, pricking me with goosebumps. The branches overhead knock against each other. The leaves whisper and shiver and sigh. Something inside me unclenches. I have read stories about where the main character encounters a door, a window, a gate, and on the other side lies a magical land where anything is possible. If that is, you dare to step through. That is what I feel right now, ready to leave the world I know and enter another. The trees tower over me. I am small, but I am brave, and my heart is everywhere inside me. My fingers tingle. Now! I take a deep breath and begin down the stone steps into this pit that is another world. A rope swing hangs from an impossibly tall tree. I have never been so close to so many humongous trees. They must be decades old, maybe even centuries old, like the Everwood. I sit high on the riverbank and let my feet swing out over the water. In my stories about Everwood, I have imagined a vast entangled forest, a dense web of dark trees. I have imagined it would be dangerous inside, a forbidding place where only the wild-hearted live. In my stories, I have never visited it. Others have, and I have collected their tales, but clearly they were wrong. I was wrong. This is the Everwood, this towering green place full of sunlight, and I belong here. I forget about wrong forks and Hart House etiquette, and my bedroom is white as clouds. I smell dirt, decomposing logs, river water. Beneath these trees, I feel the same way I have always felt when opening my notebook to a clean page. As long as I am here, I am safe. Once there was an orphan girl. She had been wandering for months, lost in an unfamiliar country. Sometimes her loneliness felt so overwhelming, she found it difficult to continue her search for family, for a home, but she always did. She wanted to see the world and discover its secrets. Curiosity burned inside her and kept her strong. One day, a great forest came into view. The orphan girl's heart stirred to see it. I wouldn't go in there, warned an old traveling musician playing his violin beside the path. Why not? Asked the orphan girl. Too many questions, he grumbled, and not enough answers. The orphan girl thanked him and continued south, down the forest road. The next day she bought an apple from a farmer. You're not going to the Everwood, are you? Asked the farmer. Of course I am, the orphan girl replied. The farmer shook her head. Then you're a fool. People will go in there, don't come out. This did not particularly trouble the orphan girl, for she had no one to leave behind. I thank you for the warning, she said, and continued down the road. On the third day, the orphan girl came to the forest's edge. A witch sat high in the trees, knitting dreams. Looking for something? The witch asked, peering down from her perch. Adventure, the orphan girl answered promptly. The witch's smile was full of holes. Then you've come to the right place. The orphan girl felt a tiny fear. A thread of darkness hissed in the witch's voice. But a tiny fear was easy enough to push aside. The orphan girl was used to ignoring her feelings that pained her. So she thanked the chuckling witch, clenched her fists, and pushed through the brambles into darkness. Chapter 5. What are you doing down here? I jump to my feet and whirl around. Gretchen stands a few feet from me staring. At least she isn't Grandma. Or Avery, who watched me at dinner last night like I was a puzzle for her to decipher. Avery's hair makes me nervous. Unless it's in a shampoo advertisement, hair should not be that shiny. Hello? Gretchen waves her hand in front of my face. Earth to Finley! Oh, hi. Hi, what are you doing out here? Nothing. Is that a question? My face grows hot. No, I was just looking around. I woke up early. I was afraid of using the wrong fork at breakfast. Gretchen stands beside me on the riverbank. Don't worry about the forks thing. Avery says that's one of the Hart family pretensions. It's not something that matters in the real world. The real world? The world outside Hart House. She squints at me. Do you know what the word pretension means? A black and white grid flashes before my eyes, and I hear Dad's voice mumbling over the Sunday New York Times crossword. Thinking of his voice feels like someone has reached inside me and twisted. Pretension. 10-letter word for snobbery, a claim to importance. It can also mean false. It's like when you're snobby about something, I explain. Oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Gretchen puts her hands on her hips and faces the woods. So you're out here just looking at everything? Yeah, I guess. My mouth feels like a machine that isn't quite working. It's pretty out here. Huh, I never really thought about it. Gretchen plops down onto the riverbank. I sit beside her, prepared to run if need be. She did kick me under the table last night and all. I can't believe you came out here by yourself, Gretchen says. You never go out in the woods? Grandma's never forbidden it exactly, but she doesn't like us being out here where she can't really see us. Mostly when we come over, we help her clean the house. Well, that doesn't sound very fun. It's not, but Grandma likes things to look nice. So it's like we all come over, and my aunt sit in the kitchen and drink, and Grandma puts us kids to work. So she says we must learn to respect what we have, and people expect us to look a certain way. I giggle. She has a pretty good grandma voice. So, what do you think about it? She asks. Our feet swing over the water. Gretchen wears red galoshes over her pajamas. The woods? Yeah, well, it's complicated. Finley, we're hearts. We share blood, you know. You can tell me. What does that even mean, being a heart? It has to be something more than blood. Otherwise, Hart House wouldn't feel like it was the wrong size for me. Maybe I should start a new list. What it means to be a heart. If I can figure that out, maybe I'll be able to survive this summer. We share blood. Kind of creepy, really. I take a deep breath. I like it because it's the Everwood. Gretchen frowns. What's that, like Narnia? It's a real place, I clarify. Not imaginary, and not in another world. It's in our world, but you can only find it if it wants you to find it. I've been writing about it forever, since I was 7. And you think this place is it? Maybe, I say. It looks like it always has in my head. But even better, I had some of it right, but I also got a lot of things wrong. Now I see how it really looks. Like what? Well, that's the greens. I point up the hill of the pit toward the bright green lawn. You know, for festivals and things. And that's the great castle. Now I point to Hart House. It sits right at the edge of the Everwood, guarding against trespassers. Is there a king and a queen? I think for a second. No, the Everwood has never had a king or queen. It's really old, and it's been hidden away for a long time. Only one who was truly worthy can be ruler of the Everwood, and no one has been worthy enough. What makes a person worthy? Only the Everwood knows that. Gretchen nods, leans back on her elbows. So, does anyone live here at the castle? Of course, someone has to, until the king or queen arrives. The 2 ancient guardians live there, all alone. That's sad. Not really, it's their solemn duty. So, how old are they? Think of the oldest living thing you can imagine, and that's them. Their duty is to watch over the Everwood and guard its secrets until the rightful ruler is found. These words spill out of my mouth as if they've always been there, waiting to become themselves. I have written dozens of Everwood stories, but now everything is different. Now I am actually here. Are they the only people who live at the Everwood? Asked Gretchen. Oh, no, there are lots of people live there. There are witches and barrows. They're digging creatures with huge mouths like shovels. They live underground, and you have to be careful where you step because they can reach up and grab you. And there are fire-breathing salamanders with poisonous drool and fairies that will play tricks on you if they decide they don't like you. And sometimes there are knights if one gets lost during a quest. Oh! Gretchen shoots upright, her hand in the air. Me! I want to be a knight! Can I? What? A knight! I'd be a great knight. Would I get a horse? Would I fight dragons? My thoughts spin out of control. What does Gretchen mean? Can she be a knight? The Everwood is not a game. It is not a thing you play at. It is a thing that already exists. You can't simply become part of something that doesn't belong to you, something you've only just learned about. I find myself wishing Gretchen had never come out here. Then she would have never found out about the Everwood, and it would still be safely mine. Now that she knows, who else might know soon? And what will they think of me? The Everwood has only ever belonged to me. We understand each other. If I swear Gretchen to secrecy, will she agree? I wonder if hearts are good at keeping secrets. I'm good at this, but then I don't feel like a real heart. Maybe blood doesn't matter. Please, please! Gretchen clasps her hands under her chin and pouts. She looks so ridiculous that I burst out laughing. It feels strange and wonderful, like jumping out of deep water to breathe. I have not laughed for days. Okay, I say you can be a knight. Gretchen pumps her fist into the air. But be warned, as a knight, it will be your duty to help the ancient guardians protect the Everwood from evil. What kind of evil? Invaders, highwaymen. I look around and then whisper, pirates. Gretchen scoffs. Please! I could take on a whole ship of pirates with one hand tied behind my back, without armor ever, blindfolded. Not even the most valiant heart, good lady, can know every wonder the Everwood holds, both gentle and dangerous. What has come over me? I don't normally talk to people like this. The only time I use my Everwood voice is around Mom or Dad, and they're only half listening anyway. Gretchen jumps to her feet. Okay, so if I'm a knight, what does that make you? I'm, I pause, flushing. I'm an orphan. That is who I have always been in all my stories. Dad used to read to me every night, and we read about a lot of orphans. They're often strange in some way. They had unusual powers or ugly scars or carried terrible secrets inside them, but they always turned out to be heroes in the end. I like that. The idea of a strange, lonely character being most powerful. Gretchen makes a face. Being an orphan doesn't sound fun at all. It isn't about fun, it's how the story goes. Okay, if you say so, it's your game. It's not a game! The words explode before I can stop them. Gretchen blinks at me, and I wonder if she will laugh at me and leave, or get mad, or think I'm a freak, or what. Do I care? Maybe it would be for the best. But Gretchen simply kneels. Forgive me, O fair orphan child. As a knight, I have awful manners, and do not always think before I speak. Warmth rushes through me. Maybe I will start laughing again. Gretchen is not making fun of me or running away. She's staying. She's smiling. She has a decent English accent. What now? You are forbidden. You are forgiven, I declare. After all, I am but a humble orphan child, and you are a great knight. Well, not yet, she says in her normal voice. I have to prove myself first. So should we go? Go where? She throws out her arms toward the woods on the other side of the river. Exploring, questing. Not sure how we'll cross, though. I search for a moment, and then point down the river at a tree trunk sized pipe that stretches across the water. It ends buried in the river banks. We'll cross over the first bridge. Well, technically, we're not allowed to go near that pipe. Grandma doesn't think it's safe. Gretchen trails off, watching me closely. I hesitate. Breaking Grandma Hart's rules on my second day here doesn't seem like a good idea. But the call of the Everwood is not something I can ignore. And now that Gretchen is beside me waiting, I don't want her to leave. I think I want her to understand. I certainly don't want her to think I'm afraid of crossing a pipe. Maybe it's important for me to impress Gretchen. If I do, I will have passed some sort of test and my cousins will accept me. If we explore fast and get back before breakfast, I say slowly, maybe no one will ever know. Gretchen grins. And a knight wouldn't care about breaking rules, would she? Not if it were for a noble cause. I'm in, let's do it. Gretchen runs toward the pipe, her galoshes kicking up clumps of mud. For a moment, I imagine Grandma Hart peeking out a window, and I freeze with fear. But it's too late. I have a responsibility to accompany Gretchen. No one should enter the Everwood alone, especially not a knight who thinks she can fight pirates blindfolded. Orphan girl! Gretchen whisper shouts, ready to cross the bridge. Hurry up! I need a guide! A guide? because no one knows the Everwood like I do, because the Everwood wanted me to find it. I grin and run to catch up.